Ambassador Kelly Craft, the United States Permanent Representative to the United Nations, welcome to Al Arabiya.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here again. So thank you.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has just tweeted today saying, and I'm just reading his tweet, if any member of the United Nations Security Council members introduces a resolution to continue sanctions relief, the U.S. will oppose it. If no resolution is introduced, the sanctions on Iran will still return on September 20th. That is how United Nations Security Resolution 2231 works. Your comment.
So, let's just go back to the conversation and the comments from Secretary Pompeo, his previous comments, that America will not join in this failed leadership. We are going to lead. We are not going to appease. And if you look, whether it's leadership within the council, no one else has stepped up, yet most of them have privately said to us, to me, to the Secretary, the importance of making certain that we do not allow Iran weapons. If you look today at the conversation between the Israeli foreign minister and the German foreign minister, both agreeing that it's so important that we deny Iran weapons. And of all the countries in the world, Germany, they know the importance of protecting Israel. So in my opinion, any country that does not vote with us in order to make certain that Iran does not have access is a co-sponsor of the #1 state sponsor of terrorism.
The latest statement by the Indonesian ambassador, Dan Dejani, who is the president of the Security Council for the month of August, and I read what he said in the council on Tuesday. In my view, there is no consensus in the council, thus the president is not in the position to take further action. I thank you. You answered him. Let me make it really clear. The Trump administration has no fear in standing in limited company on this matter in light of the unmistakable truth guiding our actions. I only regret that other members of the Security Council have lost their way and now find themselves standing in the company of terrorists. Thank you. Very strong words indeed.
And they're going to become stronger and stronger as we approach September 20th, because as you well know, at midnight we will have snapback. It will occur, and we don't mind standing alone. We are a country that we stand for the safety of the American people and the safety of the Middle East and Israel, and we absolutely will not allow. We will do everything in our power to deny Iran access to weapons.
I have been covering the United Nations for many years, and I always understood the role of the Security Council President is to allow procedures or to follow procedures, regardless of varying Council members' position. If every time the Council President waited for the consensus in the Council to act, nothing will be done in the Council. Was I wrong all this time? And what do you think of the position of the Security Council President in this particular case?
I think the Security Council President, we all know when we take up on the presidency of the Council that we have a moral obligation to follow the procedural rules. I'm not going to speak for Johnny, but I know that he obviously has thought about this carefully. He's spoken to his capital. I'm not going to be the one looking in the mirror. He's going to have to look in the mirror on that morning, and he's going to have to know that regardless of whether he follows the procedure or not, on September 20th, snapback will occur because the U.S. will not allow October 18th to occur. And God forbid, October 19th, we wake up and Iran has the opportunity to purchase weapons from Russia and China. And as far as I'm concerned, they'll be purchasing from Indonesia also, because they're going to be co-sponsors of allowing the purchase to occur.
It is true that the United States never informed legally or officially the United Nations of its withdrawal. But the withdrawal from the JCPOA was announced from the highest office in the land, the White House. So what do you say to those who say, you have withdrawn and you have no right to activate snapback?
This is a resolution 2231. This is not JCPOA. JCPOA is non-binding. 2231 is binding. It was also a resolution within the Security Council. The resolution 2231 is the one that we are initiating snapback, and we feel very strongly. And on September 20th at midnight, there will be snapback.
When I read the tweet of Secretary Pompeo today, I understood, I might be wrong, that no further activation or no other activation is needed to activate application, I mean to the Security Council, to activate the snapback. Some people are saying the United States probably will wait for the Niger to take over in the Security Council and then apply again. But the tweet made it clear that the snapback will be in action on the 20th of September. So can you confirm there's no more application to the Security Council take place?
So there will not be another application coming from the United States. If a Security Council member wishes to put forth the resolution, we will veto that resolution and we will initiate snapback after the 30 days, which was from August the 20th.
Do you expect any compromises between now and the snapback on the 20th of September, such as 6 months extension, 1 year extension, Security Council approval on any sales of arms to Iran? Some countries came up with such ideas, but I don't know if that is viable.
The only compromise that will be that could possibly happen is that Iran would stop allowing weapons to come through their country and then pass them out to their proxies, to the militia. I mean, we owe this to not only to the Middle East, but to the Iranian people. We must protect the citizens of Iran. We have an obligation to protect the Middle East, to protect Israel. I mean, the Secretary, it is so important that he's just been over there, he is there again. We are making certain that the peace agreement between Israel and the UAE, that is something that the rest of the world is looking at, because this opens up a supply chain, this opens up the best and the brightest of both countries, and this also opens up such opportunities for the Middle East.
A snapback means the return of international or multilateral sanctions on Iran, which existed prior to the nuclear deal in 2015. But for it to return, the international community has to play ball and has to reimpose their sanctions. Now, in the absence of Russia, China, and Europeans and other countries maybe applying the snapback, it really will mean, again, a U.S. unilateral sanctions on Iran. Isn't that the case?
You know, privately, several countries have said, we want to prevent Iran. We want to deny them access. Do you think that they're going to allow this even after we have the snapback, that they're going to sit back and allow Iran to then purchase and or supply? Not for a second.
How about Russia and China?
Russia and China, you know, they are reveling in the fact that they are causing dysfunction in the Council. And if they choose to sell weapons to Iran, then the U.S. will act accordingly. We will use every tool in our toolbox to make certain that Iran does not have access to weapons.
When I asked the Secretary of State Pompeo on the 20th of August, will the sanctions companies, banks from Russia and China, he said, any country. Is that still the case?
Absolutely. We will be sanctioning anyone and any entity that comes between the United States and our denying Iran access to weapons.
The Obama administration reasoning for joining the JCPOA is that unilateral sanctions are not as effective as multilateral sanctions. That's their logic at the time. Why does the Trump administration think U.S. unilateral sanctions will be successful this time around?
Well, you know, the problem with the JCPOA was it was a flawed deal. So that's the president's first initiative was, you know, we do not want a flawed deal, a deal that allows any openings whatsoever for there to be other conventional weapons that would be allowed in Iran. So that was the president's one of his first decisions is that we would deny them access. We feel as if any sanctions that take place are going to be helpful, and whether that is through the snapback, which will occur, or unilateral sanctions, anyone who stands between the U.S. and our snapback and our, denying Iran weapons is going to also be a recipient of sanctions.
The European Union announced on Friday, the 21st of August, last Friday, that the nations, 5 nations, Russia, China, Britain, France, and Germany, and Iran, will attend on the 1st of September some sort of a conference in Vienna. The U.S. is not taking part. What can you tell us about what is expected of such a meeting in Vienna?
Well, we don't know because we are not taking part, and we are not going to be taking part in any conversations unless the conversation is going to be concerning Iran no longer having access to weapons, no longer being able to give weapons, to supply weapons to whether it's Yemen, Syria, the militias in Iraq, Lebanon. There are so many countries just waiting and just imagining what was going to happen if the U.S. was not successful in snapback. So,
what does it say to you and to everybody actually when the U.S. tried to get the arms embargo extended on Iran? Not one European ally stood with the United States.
This is not a popularity contest. And we will stand alone.
But they are your allies, and you should be able to depend on them.
But our allies have said privately that they too agree that the worst thing that could ever happen was that Iran be allowed weapons. So I understand they have to answer to themselves. They have to answer to their own citizens. They will have to answer to the other countries. What the U.S. is concerned about, what President Trump is concerned about, is protecting the Middle East, Israel, the citizens of Iran, and making certain that we deny them access to weapons of any sort.
When the snapback is activated on the 20th of September, do you have any concern that the Iranians, there is a movement within the parliament to have a law forcing the government to withdraw from the JCPOA if the snapback is applied? Do you have any concern about Iran pulling out the nuclear deal?
The only concern I have is making certain that the snapback is in place, because that will deny them any access. That will deny them the opportunity to continue with nuclear, to be able to take ballistic missiles and put nuclear warheads.
But some argue that if Iran withdrew from the nuclear deal, they'll be free to enrich and to have nuclear activities of enrichment and tests. Doesn't that worry you?
Well, it does worry me, and that is one of the reasons that we have initiated snapback, is they are already have violated the JCPOA. So they have been in violation of the JCPOA. They have been in violation of the amounts of uranium, of the different nuclear activity. So therefore, that's why we are initiating snapback.
The IAEA, the International Atomic Agency in Vienna, now we understand the chief, Rafael Grossi, visited Iran this week. And do you believe that the IAEA will obtain the access they need to enter sites where the Iranians are suspected of having stored or used undeclared nuclear material?
Let's flip that. Do we really believe that Iran means that they're going to allow them access? I'm sure that IAEA, in the best of worlds, believes that they're going to have access. But this is nothing but just a charming way for Iran to show the world that for a brief moment, they're going to put on a show. This is charm defense. I mean, they're going to put offensive. They're going to put on a show, and I can guarantee you that no one will ever see the real sites. There will be no transparency, as there has not been in the past, and their behavior is not going to change.
I would like to move a very important topic, which is the peace deal between the United Arab Emirates and Israel. Would that help the countries in the region to stand up to Iran bullying of these countries?
This is a historic agreement, and this agreement is only going to allow other countries now to step up and seek the same agreement. Once they see the economic prosperity, the peace and security in their country, and the opportunities that this opens, not just between the UAE and Israel, but to the entire Middle East.
As far as you know, is Iran helping the Lebanese government in investigating the August 4th explosions, as Foreign Minister Jawad Zarif offered during his last visit to Lebanon?
You know, as far as we know, Iran has been helping Hezbollah in making certain that they have access to arms and weapons.
You have an investigative team from the FBI over there in Lebanon investigation. Are there any conclusions, any results from this?
You know, that's an investigation that's ongoing, and I can assure you that they're leaving no stone unturned. And there will be a report forthcoming, but it will be very accurate, it will be very thorough.
Last question on Iran and its meddling in at least 4 Arab countries, at least. Iraq is being one of them. Iraqi internal affairs is in the hands, more or less, of the Iranians and militias trained and armed by Iran and Hezbollah. Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi was here in the United States, was in Washington, met with the president. What can you say to the Iraqi people who want to rid Iraq from these militias and the Iranian influence? What can you say to allay their fear that the world community, the West, United States, are standing beside them?
Well, they could see just by the conversation that took place that President Trump stands for the people in Iraq, and that is one of the very many reasons that we are adamant about snapback and in protecting the people of the Middle East.
Ambassador Kelly Craft, the United States Permanent Representative to the United Nations, we thank you for this exclusive interview and for your insight, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you once again for allowing the U.S. to really show their leadership here to the world and how much we care, and that we will not, under any circumstance, I'm going to say it one more time, allow Iran access to weapons. Thank you again.
Thank you.